So, how did I make the transition from web development into game development? There are a lot of different ideologies in web development that seem to be pretty common, and I want to talk about how going against the grain helped me to become better for game programming. Roll the intro. So I think that it's worth noting a few things. So number one is that when it comes to web programming, and I'm thinking specifically like JavaScript, perhaps you're doing Node.js, PHP backend, there are a few different things that very commonly happen that are not as common in other industries, though they can be, or in other programming circles, perhaps I should say. One of them is that when you look up answers for programming questions in web development, the most common answers have become recently, hey, here's a package to solve that for you. Now, there's nothing wrong intrinsically with using something that somebody else did, but one of the things that comes about from that is that you don't necessarily learn the nitty-gritty yourself. And sometimes I think there can be this idea of, well, somebody else already did it and they probably did it better than I could do it anyway, which is really putting yourself down and thinking that you're not capable of nearly as much as you're capable of. And so, I kind of want to talk a little bit about mindsets, but I'm going to drill down into, I think, one thing that really helped me move from web development into game development. Now, obviously, I was looking for web development jobs, or I'm sorry, I was looking for game development jobs. I did look for web development jobs for a bit in the past, and part of the issue was that I was not interested in learning the newest framework every few years. And that's how a lot of web development companies have kind of been presented, and it slowed down a little bit. There was a time when it seemed like there was a new package that you had to learn every 2 years and completely changed the way that your website's formatted. It's settled, it seems like. That's my impression anyway. So it is a bit different now than it was, but one of the big things with web development that I was running into is that I had weird problems. And I think that what helped me move into game development and do well in game development way more than any other thing was that I demanded solutions for the weird problems. So let me give you some examples of these weird problems. Oh my goodness, I want to make a engine that can support multiple media and just switch rapidly between them. Okay, how am I going to do that? Now, I'm not saying that this thing was amazing or that everything was glorious about it, but it could switch from manga, it could switch to a kinetic novel, it could switch to video. And this is a really weird problem to solve. Now, does anybody else care about this besides me? Honestly, probably not. But I was looking to solve these weird problems, which meant that I had to learn things that other people weren't bothering to learn. I had to dig into information that most people didn't care about. I had to learn more of the fundamentals of how the language worked, different cross-compatibility issues across browsers. And so the thing with that is that it forced me to look at these problems and not just use what everyone else was using. And one of the big things in game development is that there are problems that you can just take what somebody else made, but you're pretty much always building things yourself. You can't just go, okay, well, this has the format of the game that I want. Like, here's the thing. If you go into a professional job and you're like, okay, we're just going to use baseline RPG Maker for our game, that's probably not going to happen. I'm not going to say that that could never, ever happen anywhere in the world, because I'm sure that there are examples, like one or two, but you're going to be creating custom things that other people are not talking about. And even if there is something that somebody else does that solves 90% of your problem, that 10% could be a killer for your game's design. And so it's not just, well, I guess we're changing the whole game design because you know, it's just what the engine has. You're probably going to be instead saying, hey, this is the game field we're targeting. We have to rewrite stuff. We have to change all of this. And that was what I kept running into with the things that I was doing, was that, hey, you know what? I want to do something a little bit weird and nothing else quite fits the weirdness that I want. And I guess that maybe that's kind of from like my previous background with doing games and making games, building games from when I was 9 years old, and then like working in level editors when I was 4 and on, and just trying to figure out what the heck I could do that maybe was a bit beyond me at times. But still, I was always looking for what is the way that I can solve my specific weird problem. And so going back to that, I would say if you are just trying to build another website, if you're just like, well, I'm going to make this website, but it's going to be prettier than the last website, that's not probably going to help you move into game programming. And again, if you want to stay in web development, there's nothing wrong with that. So I want to make sure that I emphasize that. It's not, oh man, you should be moving to game dev. It's like, if your goal is to move into game dev and you're just making prettier websites, you're not going to move yourself into game dev. If you are working with some more advanced things or some more code backend, then you could learn some things that could help you with it. And specifically, I'm talking about learning. So there's the portfolio aspect, and then there's also what are you learning that will help you with the gig. So another thing that I was doing that was a bit out of the ordinary was that I wanted to solve a weird problem of making a very small mini game engine with C compiled to WebAssembly. I was really obsessed with learning how to compile to WebAssembly and make stuff with it, because people weren't talking about it, or they way overcomplicated it when you can like get yourself started in 5 minutes. Everybody's like, here's an hour and here's all the things you need, and make sure that you have this too, and make sure that you create all these hooks. No, you don't need to do that. And you learn way more about the fundamentals of programming not doing that than you do doing that. And that's again going back to using the pre-built packages can keep you from learning the fundamentals, which can keep you from growing as much as a programmer to accomplish the things that you're trying to accomplish, or become a person who can solve harder problems. So what I ended up doing in here is I've got my own engine. I've got a let's see, where is it? Aha, here we go. I got this debug mode. You can actually see the way that I've got all the data organized, which is a way that works well in this context, and it's actually a little bit ECS-y, which is kind of cool and a lot of fun to work with. I can just change any of these types, and I can end up creating all of these different instances to throw around on the screen and add into the mess. And it's a lot of fun. It adds to my repertoire of understanding, hey, here are the fundamentals and here's what you can do with this. And so, and I was also looking at how do I just reduce my code base so that I can stretch myself a little bit. Okay, I'm going to remove 50 lines from the code base today. Is this because the code base needs to be smaller? No, it's because I'm trying to learn and develop myself. And so if you are looking to move from web development into game development, you need to become a problem solver who is willing to work outside of the box, because you're going to have to do that a lot with game development. You're going to have to work outside of what was built. You're going to have to create something new. You're going to have to reinvent the wheel because the wheel is a little bit squeaky for your use case, or because you need a wheel that actually is permanently turned this way, or you need to have something. The thing is that you're always going to have a bit of a different feel for the games that you're working on, and so you're probably not just going to be able to reuse the same engine and have everything work flawlessly. And even when you think that everything should work flawlessly, it's not going to. So I think that is the number one thing that has really helped me with moving into this game programming role from web programming, is that I was willing to solve weird problems, and I would look into things that were not documented. I've had to do that at work, is look into features that are not documented well, not talked about well, and figure them out, dig them up, find old forum posts and piece things together, experiment, look through debug logs, just figure out what the heck is going on. And so it's sort of really, if you are trying to stay safe as far as web development and what people say that you should be doing, and hey, don't redo this because other people have already done it, there's a lot of learning to be had in reinventing the wheel. This is going to sound maybe really weird, but reinventing the wheel can be seen as, man, don't rewrite what somebody else already did. But there's so much learning to be had there. If your goal is primarily to make a thing and to make it as fast as possible, yeah, sure, use what was already made and make that your focus. If your goal is, hey, I want to grow into a person who can tackle harder problems, and I want to grow into a person who can do things that other people aren't willing to tackle, then you need to be willing to dig in. Because every time that, like, okay, let's just say with web development, every time that a new big package comes out that people get all excited about, which again, I could be mistaken. I think that was more common like 5 years ago, is that it felt like every year there was some new framework that everyone had to learn. If your goal is to, like, those people who created those things, they were the people who were willing to learn the fundamentals, and then they changed the industry a bit. And if you really want to be a game changer, no pun intended, or perhaps that should be intended, that is a pretty good pun, you need to be willing to ignore the common knowledge and to drive ahead in other areas. Now, of course, you have to build up a game portfolio. There are other things you have to do, but this is a huge mindset, is having an appetite for the weird problems is going to get you really far in game development. If you want the easy or the common problems or the ones that other people have already solved, then you're not going to do well in this industry, and so don't even bother. But if you're willing, if you're interested in doing bizarre things that nobody else seems to care about, or that is only useful in this context, then you could have a place in the video game industry. That's all I got for you today. Feel free to let me know if you have any questions or if you have any thoughts on this, and I would love to hear from you. And even if you disagree with me, if you're like, Josh, you're an idiot, I'd be like, well, that was rude, but why? Maybe don't say that. That would be kind of rude, actually. But hope you have a fantastic day. Take care.